internationally certified, nationally recognized, and recognizing that professionalism and safety and efficiency is paramount to their mission. We've got a great station here in Tualatin, as Bob said. It's well equipped. It's also one of, I believe, 14 hazmat centers in the state of Oregon. So through an integrated network and I think we actually share that. I think about half of as many as 30 or 40 personnel are housed in Tualatin. So looking ahead, what's over the horizon? I mentioned Tualatin Tomorrow. Tualatin Tomorrow wasn't just an exercise in public input. Tualatin Tomorrow was the folks who live here having the time to reflect, with some professional direction in terms of what's feasible, and bless you, and what can be changed from a dream to a vision. We have just scores and scores of people who are very invested and very excited about the future of their community. And that group has fostered, and by the way, the vision plan is a document, and there are, I believe, 5 areas of interest that I'll cover. There are a number of strategies. I've forgotten 150 maybe action steps that have been identified, and they're documented, they're identified, they're organized, and yet, and it's the responsibility of the City Council and to facilitate implementation of that vision. But we're fortunate that we have a group of folks called the Vision Implementation Committee who have said, we are willing to take that charge. And we are willing to work with the lead partners. A huge one, of course, is the Chamber, Tualatin Valley Fire and others. We're willing to work with the city staff. We're willing to consult to the City Council and to communicate back to the neighborhoods the vision, the implementation of it, the progress of it in these 4 areas. And it's just a tremendous group of people. Any community in terms of government would kill to have a group of folks, and I'm talking, 2 or 3 dozen that are actively involved, and then scores that are peripherally involved and interested. One of the things that was in that vision was the potential of a rec facility. And so at the end of last year, the City Council decided to take that implementation task and go out and test that. And so we actually did some surveying last month and asked the question, gosh, folks, and remember now, we're on the cusp of potentially a recession. Some folks are feeling it. Housing market is different issues. And just ask the question, would you be willing to support a rec program if it costs you $25 a month? 77%, and this was a statistically valid survey, said we would be very supportive or somewhat supportive, and only 23% said we would either oppose it or be somewhat opposed to that. Taking that one step further, one of the key components of that was a community center, a recreation facility. And again, ask that particular question of building a center that would have these kinds of things. An even larger percent, 83% of the population said, I'd be willing to support that. Well, I got to tell you, pleasantly pleased, shocked, really, in terms of, because if you think $25 a month, you multiply that by 12, that would be either the tax or the fee impact on that on a typical, I think, $200,000 home. So that's a huge measurement of demand. So we're in the process right now of identifying what that might look like. We've got an ad hoc committee. This is not a City Council-driven thing, folks. This is a Tualatin Vision-driven thing, and then involving an ad hoc committee of, I think there's probably 30 people involved in that from various stakeholders, identifying what that might look like. And then when they get their work done in May, I believe, we will then take that finished product, if you will, that's more specific, more identified, more accurately costed, and statistically take that back to the community and say, do you still feel the same way? If the answer is yes, then there's a good likelihood you'll see that on the ballot in November. Getting back to the future in terms of growth, you see Tualatin in blue, Sherwood and Wilsonville, you see a lot of white, particularly to the lower left, or would that be your right, and over here to your left, Stafford. That area, some of which is inside the urban growth boundary to the south, some of which is not to the east, is an area of, is that future growth for this region? And if so, how does it work? How's it governed? How's it paid for? And so because of some peculiarities, I will say, in Oregon land use law, not to be critical, that process has been not only difficult, but it's been legally a nightmare. So a number of folks in this region went to the legislature, got some legislative change in the last session, and came up with a Senate bill in 2010 or something like that. Yeah, whatever. That basically said, you know, there are other ways that you can expand, not just on rocky soil. And charged the 3 counties and Metro as a group of 4 voting members to identify a 50-year reserve of urbanizable areas and a 50-year reserve of rural or not to be urbanized areas, to take some of the question out of the future and have a different grounding in how that's determined. Then that will also involve, not as a voting level, but it will involve from an input standpoint, members from each county and cities, and our own Chris Barheit actually represents all the cities in Washington County on that board with the exception of the 2 largest cities of each county that have their own member. So, you know, without getting a bunch of governmentese, that's kind of what that looks like, the voting for the peripheral cities, and all the agencies and entities and all those things with O's are state agencies and other stakeholders. This is, I think, an 18-month process, but at the end of that process, hopefully we'll have some better definition in terms of how and where this region will accept the 1 million people that are coming in the next 40 years. So transportation, did I mention transportation? I did mention commuter rail and 99W, but I want to talk about transportation in a little different context. I'm going to talk about it in the context of a town center plan, South Tualatin concept plan. If you look at Tualatin, that's a map of Tualatin, and the center part, if I can do this without advancing the slide, every time I hit a mouse, bad things happen. So that's our downtown center, that gray area. The blue is our industrial area, the pink is commercial, and all the yellow is residential. And basically what you see is a hub, if you will, that anyone who wants to get on the freeway has to go through. Well, I'm not telling you something you don't already know. But I guess if you were going to design a city, knowing what you know today about the land constraints and about the growth and about travel, would you have everything go through the center? I would question that. And if it did go through the center, how would you handle it differently? So those 2 questions beg some answers. One is, looking at the downtown center area, which is identified by this line, you can vaguely recognize the Commons Lake in there. There was a downtown concept plan put together by our staff with public input, some chamber members and so on, a couple of years ago. We have held off on that because we want to compare that to the outcome of the visioning process. Council is now engaged in looking at that in more detail. And the questions become, what kind of uses would be in the new downtown? And the brown or copper color refers to, in most cases, commercial and mixed use. You see a road area in a circle here, you don't see it. But you would if the mouse worked. And where is currently Kmart, what we've referred to as the Loop Road. We're interested in a downtown that has a river orientation focus to it. I mean, you've got an asset like that, why not use it? But the real question becomes, how do you handle the transportation through town? I don't know if I have another slide on this or not, but today we have Tualatin Sherwood Road coming through. One concept is a parallel road, Herman Road, over the river out toward the Pac Trust property, and then figuring out some way to get that to the freeway without conflicting what is there at Bridgeport Village and the improvements that have been made. Another concept is maybe we shouldn't be routing traffic through the middle of town. Maybe we should, with the extension of 124th on the west end of town and down south, have that hook into the enhanced system that will be built eventually in South Tualatin as part of the connector study and eventually possibly even the connector. So, it's time to kind of take a step back and think not just traffic problems today, because we have traffic problems today and there are minor things we can do to solve them, but think in that long term, that 20, 30, 40-year planning horizon about the traffic congestion. What do you want your downtown to look like in the future? And I bring that up for one very important reason, because funding that is a difficult endeavor. And one of the tools that we have today, it's called urban renewal financing. It's really tax increment financing. In some cases, you're renewing urban areas. In some cases, you're starting maybe from new dirt. But it's a way to capture the value that is created out there by development and have the majority of that money go to pay for infrastructure there. Now, there's a caveat to that. You know, that takes away money from schools, that takes away money from fire, that takes away money from other people who share in property taxes broadly. So there's got to be a balance in how that's done. But we think that's an important tool. And I bring it up now because the downtown urban renewal district that we've had for, help me, Doug, 30 years, 25 years, will expire in 2010. It will be completed. So we can't do any of that, or much of that downtown concept plan, in my opinion, without tax increment financing. So we will be looking at renewing that. That will take some participation by our community, by the business community, as well as our partners. And then south Tualatin, the 1,000 acres between Tualatin and Wilsonville, again, from a funding standpoint, we look at that as a tool as well. And that's a tool that has been accused of misuse in municipal and county applications in the past, and maybe where there's smoke, there's fire. We don't want to get in the shrapnel of someone else's hand grenade. So we want to make sure that we're doing this in a way that works for our community and it works with our partners. Significant events, real quickly through this. This is the fun stuff. You know, Fox Hill 4th of July parade, the Art Splash, you know, put on not by the city, put on by our arts folks. Concerts on the Commons, we kind of put it on, but you pay for it. The business community contributes to that. Movies on the Commons that the Youth Advisory Council is doing. Crawfish Festival, the fun run. Friday night of the Crawfish Festival is just becoming such an awesome event. The West Coast Giant Pumpkin Regatta, seen on CNN every year for the last 4 years. And sometime when there's you and me, I'll tell you who that guy is there with the paddling device. I've had an opportunity to do that. It looks really hard, and it's a lot harder than it looks. We had fun with the ribbon cutting at Kia Cuts. The River Keepers thought it'd be kind of fun to have a little competition between the Tualatin and the Durham mayor and the Tigard mayor, since we bridged the two. And by the time that got trumped up, we had, I think, about 15 mayors and county commissioners and metro councilors. So let's talk just a little bit about our staff, you know, and I know I'm out of time, but this is the best part, really, in terms of what I get to do on a daily basis. Because working at the city of Tualatin, I don't know the count off the top of my head, I'm going to guess 140 people, of people that are really dedicated to this community. They're dedicated to their jobs, they come to work every day, and they enjoy their work. I get a chance to be around and watch that to a degree, but they're people who really, really care. And a lot of those people have been with the city for a long time, and so it's home to them, you know, during 8 to 5 or 7 to 7 or whenever they're working. And then, you know, some are a little newer. We have a new city manager, most of you have had a chance to meet, and I tell you, Sherilyn is, and it's Sherilyn like Carolyn, only with an SH. Sherilyn is a tremendous asset and addition to City Hall, but also a tremendous addition to this community. Those of you who met her know that. She brings an enthusiasm, she brings a drive, she brings the interest in challenging present thinking. You know, she had the benefit of never having been a city manager before. In fact, I'm not sure she had much of a career at all before. She's so young, and that's a good thing. You're supposed to laugh at that. But you know, instead of saying, what's this button do? She says, why are you guys still using buttons? And just really brings a different set of eyes. It's been really exciting for me and the council to have a chance to work with her. And I know staff is energized, and I know that we are rapidly changing the way we do business because the world around us is changing. And yet we've got folks who have been with us for nearly 30 years that maintain stability in that as well and enjoy coming to work. And so those are the names and faces. That guy in the lower left is our new finance director, and anybody with a smile that big has got to be great in the organization. Don Hudson, and of course, a lot of these folks, you know, Doug Ruck's a big part of the chamber. And then our city council. I have to tell you that you guys have a very bright city council. I have a lot of fun working with these folks. These folks are articulate, they're energetic, they're broad thinking. We roll up our sleeves and we mix it up. There's a tremendous amount of heart and soul and energy that comes from Ed and Chris and Monique and Bob and Jay and Donna. That is just, it's a lot of fun to be around. It takes a lot of energy for that group to stay together and stay focused sometimes because there's so much going on, you know, between the ears. But it's a lot of fun, and you are very fortunate, in my opinion, to have these 6 individuals putting the time and energy that they do into this community. But that said, we are facilitators. We are not rulers. We try to lead in the direction that people want to go and where they want to end up. We're fortunate to be able to have great partners to do that, the Chamber being a huge one, and you can just read the list of all the Chamber things there to recognize the contribution that you make to this community, and others that I mentioned, not the least of which is some 35,000 hours a year of logged, organized volunteer time, but we just know thousands of other hours of volunteer time that go in that are not officially recognized. I get a chance to get around the state, around the region, around the nation a little bit. You may have heard me say this before, but because of your energies, because of your efforts, because of the people who live in this community, the people who work in this community, the people who invest money in this community in terms of development, this is, without question, the greatest city south of the North Pole. And I just